So here's what the examples page looks like. You know it's an examples page because it's an even number. If you're a distance learning student and you have a printer, I suggest you print this out. If not, you'll have to do like you did on the first set of notes and sketch the graphs labeling the key points. So let's take a look at the directions, and they say for each example, find the following key features. If they do not exist, put DNE as the answer. So we will look at the positive and or negative intervals, the relative maximum and or relative minimum, and the absolute maximum and or absolute minimum. So what I did was I went ahead and listed out all of the possible choices and then filled them in as I went. I did have room on the right to do that, but I did have to write pretty small. You can fit it around the example wherever you see fit. So before I even start this, what I do first is I label my positive and my negative sections of the graph. So this part would be positive, and this part would also be positive. So the positive interval over here is coming from negative infinity, and then it stops at this x value, which is -2. And again, because they're coming from an infinity, it's going to be a regular parenthesis, and the -2 has the square bracket. It is again positive over here, starting at +2, and then the graph keeps going forever to the right, going towards positive infinity, also with a square bracket by the 2. The negative values, the negative intervals, is where I did not highlight. It's this bottom part here. So the negative interval is going to start at -2 and continue all the way to +2, both of them with square brackets. The relative maximum, you're looking for a peak, a mountain. Well, this one doesn't have any, and it keeps going forever up on the left, and it keeps going forever up on the right. So in this picture, in this function, a relative maximum does not exist. A relative minimum is if you had 2 or more valleys. We don't have 2 or more valleys. The lowest point on the graph is here at 0, -4. So the relative minimum does not exist. Absolute maximum does not exist. The graph keeps going up on both sides and never stops. So if the graph never stops going up, no absolute max and no relative max. Absolute minimum, like I said, the lowest point is that point 0, -4. Number 2, same thing, I listed out my 6 things. Positive interval, so where is the graph above the x-axis? Well, this entire graph is above the x-axis. So on the left, it's coming from negative infinity. On the right, it keeps going towards positive infinity. So the positive interval would be negative infinity to positive infinity. Because this is just like number 2 on the first set of notes, the x-axis would be way down here. So this graph is in the second quadrant. Negative intervals, this graph is never negative, so there's none of them. Relative max, graph keeps going up on the left, graph keeps going up on the right, so the relative maximum does not exist. Relative minimum is if there would be 2 or more valleys. There's only one valley, so the relative minimum doesn't exist either. Absolute maximum would be the highest definite point. We don't have one of those because the graph keeps going up on both sides. Absolute minimum would be this point right here, which is -2. This is +4. -2, 4. I'm not sure where I got the -1 from.